This week, a trio of advocacy groups launched what is believed to be the world's first high-profile climate lawsuit against a commercial bank. And the, I guess, philosophical or legal underpinning of this challenge is actually pretty interesting. So I can't wait to discuss. This is BNP Paribas, Europe's largest funder of fossil fuel expansion projects. And an advocacy officer at Oxfam France says that it continues to write new blank checks to the largest fossil fuel companies without setting any conditions for an oil-free, gas-free ecological transition. They had apparently spent months communicating with the bank to try to ward off, from their point of view, the need for this lawsuit, but BNP was not interested in that. So here is what they say they're gonna use for this lawsuit. They accuse BNP of violating France's duty of vigilance law, which, according to a summary from the European Coalition for Corporate Justice, establishes a legally binding obligation for parent companies to identify and prevent adverse human rights and environmental impacts resulting from their own activities, as well as the activities of companies they control and from activities of their subcontractors and suppliers with whom they have an established commercial relationship. Which is interesting. The idea is that if you are financially underpinning and benefiting financially from the activities of these companies, you have a corporate responsibility to make sure that they are not committing violations of human rights and other affiliated issues that would then result in you benefiting from that. And these advocacy groups are pointing out that there are massive consequences for additional fossil fuel exploration and exploitation. And so I don't know what the sort of current makeup of France's judicial system is, how likely they are to take this seriously, I suppose. But in any event, I like it. It's a novel way to approach this. I think that these companies have been benefiting for well over a century while putting all of the associated costs onto us, not only in concerns of carbon emissions leading to climate change, but pollution, which kills literally hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people every single year.
Yeah, look, Anna and I were just talking about this on I think the bonus episode last night for members, and about, well, what could we do with capitalism, and is there any way to get it under control so that its only imperative is not to maximize profit? Because if that's the only code we write in legally, well, then they're going to destroy everything in their path to maximize profit, because that's literally their job, right? Well, in Europe, as you can see here, that's not the only code they write in. They say that you have to care about human rights and prevent adverse human rights and environmental impacts. So that's in the law. That's why this lawsuit exists. They're not just like, I don't know, let's give it a rough shot here and do some far-flung lawsuit that has no chance of succeeding. Now, how do I know it has a chance of succeeding overall in Europe? Well, Shell got sued on similar grounds, and a Dutch court ruled that they have to slash their carbon emissions by 45% by the year 2030. Now, look, they haven't complied yet, and it's under appeals, but that's a court saying, no, you are not to maximize profit at all costs. You must do these things that affect that, because your costs are negatively affecting the rest of society. And this is the rest of society saying, no more, okay? You've got to do it in these specific ways. It doesn't mean Shell can't exist, doesn't mean this bank can't exist, but there are certain rules and restrictions that you have to follow. I love that. That's exactly what a democracy is supposed to do. Say, hey, here's what's allowed and what's not allowed. And burning up and destroying the planet falls squarely under the not allowed category. But here, again, they're not going anywhere near that far. They're just saying, hey, if you have, you're gonna do $8 billion of financing of fossil fuel companies, as this bank did over a recent period of time, well, then you've got to do other things to ameliorate it, right? It's good news for our Aspiration has been a sponsor of ours, they're not currently, but so what Aspiration does is they go, okay, if you've got a dirty bank like these guys, come to us. We don't finance fossil fuel companies, right? And then they say to other companies, hey, why don't you clean up your act? Here, we'll show you how to get carbon neutral, right? And in America, some companies are trying to do the right thing and they sign on for that. But the bad guy companies are like, who cares? There's no consequences. But in Europe, there are consequences. And that's great. So this is a relatively novel lawsuit, not the first of its kind, as I just explained, but a really welcome development. Brian, what do you think?
The duty of vigilance law, I was just curious when I heard that. I wondered how often it is called into question, or in terms of being violated, or how often a case is brought to court based in that law, because we have something similar here, but it's so all over the place in terms of just general liability. And this idea, even this case that went before the court this week about Section 230, and do internet providers have any, liability when they are passing on their own form of toxicity in the forms of information, and are they liable for that? And so it brings a moral question to what is considered good business, and what is righteous, and what is good, and then what is also a detriment to society. And this just seems like an interesting, novel way to approach the climate problem, because I don't know. You're asking companies basically to stop funding companies that spill poison into the air that are ruining the planet. That you have some culpability, that you're involved in that. You're in this chain of custody of funding a company that then pollutes. And then for you to just sort of say, we're just financing, someone. We're just the creditor here. It just raises really, really interesting questions for sure.
Yeah. Well, there's finally a statement from a spokesperson for BNP. They told a website called Responsible Investor that they, quote, regret that the NGO's decision to engage in litigation rather than dialogue. And I have to say, I regret it too, because I really think a couple more months of talking and they probably would have willingly stopped. It's just, a couple months, maybe 50 years. A couple months to 50 years, they would have stopped. It's just needless. It's a waste of money and time.
Yeah, well, Buttigieg would have loved that proposal. Thanks for watching The Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.